Good morning, and thank you for joining our Hungry for Knowledge Luncheon Webinar Workshop presented by IREM Greater Denver. This is the first in our series of these workshops, and I really appreciate you taking a moment out of your day to walk through this process with me as we launch a brand new platform and a brand new offering for property managers just about anywhere. My name is Jody Holstein. You might know me as the Executive Director for the IREM Greater Denver chapter. What you might not know is that I have owned my own business for over a decade. My business is all about building strong administrative foundations. My competency is all around process improvement. I've written a book that takes very comprehensive and laborious strategies around process improvement and boiled it all down to 4 easy steps anyone at any level can follow so that they can make something broken better. Today, we're going to be talking about finding efficiencies during deficiencies, and we will just jump right on into it. I want you to get familiar with your chat room. On your right-hand side, you should see your chat area. This is where I want you to put any questions that you might come up with during our webinar today. I am going to be managing those myself, so I'm going to see just how difficult it is to present and manage at the same time. Find that chat and do me a favor. Would you please put in that chat where you are right now watching this webinar? Are you in your home office? Are you in your work office? Are you in your living room? Are you in your dining room? Are you in a closet? Where are you finding yourself right now in order to get some education and get some work done? Let me know what you guys are experiencing. I am currently in my home office. My home office is set up, and it's where I've worked ever since I've always had a home office. I've always worked from home. So I know that some of you who are in your work office, basement office, in your living rooms, in your dining rooms, I know it's tough, isn't it? The distractions, and sometimes you don't even need a person. It can just be the environment that's a distraction. So I really appreciate you guys taking the time, hunkering down wherever you are, and just spending an hour with me. Our agenda today, we're going to be talking about understanding what deficiency is. We're going to talk about anger, acceptance, observation, action, and incorporation. We're going to go right through those. And when you're done with today's webinar, my hope for you is that you look at this period of deficiency a little different and that you see it as opportunity. So let's get started with understanding deficiency. I'm going to start by involving you guys in a little poll I've got going on here. And I want you to tell me, how do you feel when you hear the word deficiency? What is the initial reaction that kind of goes through your gut? Is it positive and motivated? Is it fearful and anxious? Or is it defensive with a fear of failure? What is your reaction? Go ahead and click on that button and give us an idea of really where we sit with the word deficiency. As those numbers are coming in, I will tell you, I'm seeing more. Oh, wow. Okay. I'm seeing the numbers come in. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll and take a look at what we're seeing here. We are seeing that over 80%, almost 90% of the people who hear the word deficiency immediately internalize fear and anxiousness or defensive with a fear of failure. Very few people hear the word deficiency and go, yay, what I always wanted. There's a problem in that. How can we ever hope to find anything positive in a word that creates such negativity? Well, I'm going to show you, and we're going to start by looking up the generic definition of deficient. What is deficient? It's not having enough of a specified quality or ingredient. That's all it is. Just not having enough of an ingredient. There's no accusations in there. There's no judgment in there. There's no finger pointing in there. It just simply is lacking in what we need. Let's just start there. I'm going to share with you a little story about deficiency. Back in the late 1990s, my husband was working for a car dealership. And every Saturday, the owner of this car dealership would pay to have lunch catered in for all of the employees on Saturday. It was about 25 to 30 employees. And over time, they started getting, well, bored with the Subway sandwiches and the pizzas. And my husband came home one day and he said, "Hey, Joe, my boss asked if you would be willing to cater lunch every Saturday for 30 people. Of course, I responded with, "Yeah, that sounds like a great idea. I have a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old, but cooking all day on Friday and packing everything up to be delivered hot and ready to eat by 10:30 Saturday morning sounds like a great idea." That is exactly what happened, because sometimes we're not smart. So I moved forward making all kinds of meals, great meals. They all included some kind of an appetizer, a full meal, a dessert. And one week, I thought, you know what would be great? I haven't done this yet, is my fried chicken, mashed potatoes, and gravy. Now, I'm going to tell you, my grandmother taught me how to make fried chicken, mashed potatoes, and gravy. And I would put my fried chicken up against any chef in Denver anytime. I got taught by the master. So when I moved forward with this meal, I had an expectation of what the end product was going to look like. And I knew it was going to be damn good. It was probably going to be like unlike anything anyone had had in any restaurant they'd ever been in. I spent all day Friday cooking up the fried chicken, 75, 80 pieces of fried chicken. I boiled 15 pounds of potatoes, got them all mashed up and ready to go. I made 5 homemade apple pies ready to go. By about 9 o'clock, I was exhausted, but relieved in knowing that the only thing I had left to make was my gravy. That was all I had left. The next day, I could get the kids up, get them fed, get them clothed, heat up the food, get the gravy made, and it would be easy. I had it all put together. Now, for those of you who've never made homemade gravy, I feel sad for you, but what you need is you need the drippings from the fried chicken. That's what makes homemade gravy. That's the distinction between what you get in a jar and what you get at my house. When you cook that chicken, all the grease goes down into the pan with the crispy pieces and the flavors. And that is where it all comes from. And so before I went to bed, I took all of my drippings and I put them on the counter, ready to rock and roll for the next day. My husband wasn't home yet. When I got up the next morning, my husband had left for work, and I went into the kitchen to find my drippings were gone. They were gone. I looked in the fridge. I looked on the counter. Did they get set outside? Oh my God, what did I do? Finally, I called my husband and he said, "Oh, that looked like garbage to me. I threw it down the disposal." Immediately, I found myself deficient. Deficient in an ingredient that was necessary to do the job as I had envisioned it. At the end of the day, deficiency is all about our scope triangle. It's all about missing one of these key components that impacts our quality. We're either missing a feature or a functionality. We're missing a schedule or time. We're missing resources. That might be money. It might be people. We're missing something that is making it difficult for us to proceed the way that we have envisioned. I know you have all been there. And what I'm going to see now is that is the best time to look for inefficiencies. And here is why. During times of deficiency, inefficiencies are going to rise to the top like scum on top of a pond. They are going to pop right up there, and they are going to be visible right in your face. You're not going to be able to avoid them. That is why times of deficiency are the best times to create efficiencies, because all your inefficiencies are going to be visible. I worked for a company that experienced a rolling layover. I don't know if any of you have ever had the displeasure of working through a rolling layover. I'm sorry, not layover, layoff, a rolling layoff. Most people know what a layoff is. You come in on Friday morning and you're like, oh my gosh, Betty's gone, Bill's gone, Jeff is gone, everybody's gone. Nobody had a clue, right? And the first thing employees say is, wow, they could have let us know. They could have told us. We're adult enough. We could have handled it. Well, I'm going to tell you, in a rolling layoff, nobody's adult enough to handle it. We were all called into this big meeting room, and we were told when we left that meeting room, we would be able to see a poster board. And on that poster board would be 3 columns. One column would be everyone who needs to pack up their stuff because today is their last day. The middle column is everybody who will need to pack up their stuff in 90 days. They have 90 days and they will be laid off. And in the third column was everyone who is going to be laid off at the 6-month mark. Horrible idea. Horrible. Of course, they anticipated the deficiency of that first column of people. They're gone. What they didn't anticipate was the deficiency of all the people. Because on that day, the people who were supposed to be laid off in 3 months, the people who were supposed to be laid off in 6 months, they just stopped working. Let me tell you, deficiency hit this company, and it hit them at 100 miles an hour, and the inefficiencies rose quickly to the top. We saw immediately, what are those things we thought were getting done that aren't getting done? What are the things that were getting done that didn't need to get done? And they hit us at lightning speed because the deficiency was the deficiency made it possible for those things to fly right in the face of management and ownership. Deficiency. Now, let's talk about our reaction to deficiency. We all react. And it is absolutely okay to react with some anger. Anger is a human emotion. We will have it. Let me just tell you, when I discovered that my chicken drippings were gone, I was angry. I was very angry. It wasn't fair. I didn't want it. I didn't deserve it. Make no mistake that I stood in that kitchen and I pointed some fingers because I'd done everything right. I was angry. It's okay to spend a moment being angry. But look, Anger is good and bad. If it's used inappropriately, our anger can disrupt our life. It can control our thoughts. It can ruin relationships. It can cause pain, health problems, emotional problems, and it can leave a negative impression. Think about the times of deficiency that you have had and that you've experienced. Think about if you were angry and what is the risk when you experience that anger. Having worked with property managers for the last 10 years, this is a group of people that is constantly dealing with deficiency. Constantly. Let's point out just 3 ways that the property management industry experiences deficiency. The first one is when the natural disasters hit. Look, we have hail, wind, tornadoes, and hurricanes. And just because you are a property manager in Colorado and you've got the hail and you know it's coming and you're prepared for it, doesn't mean you don't have a property in Houston that's going to get hit by a hurricane, or a property in Colorado or California that's going to get hit by a fire. When these natural disasters hit, it diverts resources, doesn't it? It diverts time, it diverts money, and it leaves our property managers deficient in what they need to do what they had in their mind they wanted to do. Economic uncertainty. Boy, the real estate industry rides that roller coaster. And they react to those extremes, those ups, those downs. And those extremes divert resources, don't they? One day you're doing just fine. The next day, oh my God, we've got to cut the budget. Oh my God, we've got to go into a completely different way of thinking. It puts you in a state of deficiency. And how about staffing issues? This is the number one issue that I hear from my members. Number one issue, staffing issues. Either you can't find people who are qualified, or those people you thought were qualified don't show up to work. It is a constant roller coaster of deficiency. So enter in the coronavirus pandemic. What a trifecta. What a perfect storm of deficiency. You've got the natural disaster combined with the economic insecurity, combined with the staffing issues, operating at a beautiful level of deficiency. How does it make you feel? How does it make you feel? I want to know, how do you feel? What is your response when you get angry? Because I'm going to tell you, we've all gotten a little angry. Whether we've gotten angry at the virus itself, whether we've gotten angry at our employer, we've gotten angry at some of our coworkers, maybe we've gotten angry at our spouse. What is your response to anger? I can tell you, you're either going to withdraw, you're going to cry, you're going to get emotional, you're going to yell and return the anger, or you're going to rally. What do you do when you get angry? While those responses are coming in, I will tell you, I don't withdraw. I cry if I'm really, really angry, but I'll tell you what, I can give it back. Anger is typically not where I rally. Property managers are in the rally business. I'm going to end our poll and I'm going to show you the results, which are 37% are going to withdraw, 25% are going to cry, 12% are going to return that anger, and only 25% are going to rally at this point. It's so important to understand anger in this process because Oftentimes, this is where we stall. Anger is right where we stall. Important when we're facing a deficiency, we go through the anger, but then we have to go on to acceptance. We have to get past the anger. We have to get past the not fair, not wanted, not deserved, and be able to move on. Yeah, I spent some time in my kitchen being angry. But if I hadn't gotten over the anger, no solutions were going to come to me. I wasn't going to be able to accomplish anything. Really important. So, how do you move on? How do you move on from anger? I'm going to suggest you move on from anger by taking a pause. Just take a pause. I have a very good friend who, when she saw that I could give back anger for anger, she said, Jody, I'm just going to tell you a little secret. When agitated, pause. I have replayed that comment in my head for 20 years. Let it simmer. Yep, I've just experienced a huge deficiency. I'm going to let it simmer. I'm going to acknowledge that it exists. I'm going to acknowledge things aren't getting done. I'm going to go into a period of triage. And whatever you do not make the big mistake. The big mistake is at this point sweeping in like some kind of superhero and making everything better. I'll tell you what, we may be down 4 people. I may have to do my job out of my closet, but not a single person is going to feel a need. Not a single owner is going to want for anything. Not a single tenant is going to see any kind of difference. Because I'm going to sweep in and I'm going to make it all go away. Here's why you don't do that here. Because if you sweep in when really what you're supposed to be doing is triaging, what you're supposed to be doing is just letting it simmer, you will have most likely rewritten your job description. And don't be surprised if long after the deficiency is over, you're still doing the job of 3 people. You're still handling tasks that weren't really in your job description because guess what? You just rewrote your job description. I understand that. My tendency is to sweep in like a superhero and just make everything okay. And with that company that had the rolling layoffs, it didn't take long for disaster to just come tumbling down. And with that being my tendency, I reached out and said, oh, I can do that. Oh, I can do that. Oh, I can do that. And a year later, went into my boss's office and had a pretty epic meltdown. It was pretty epic. And when I got done with my rant and my tears and my yelling, he looked at me and he goes, Jody, I never asked you to do any of those things. I was just kind of waiting for you to tell me when you'd had enough. Don't do it. You'll regret it. So let's chat for a moment. Find your chat box and let me know, what are some tasks that you've taken on in times when resources are deficient? What are some tasks that you're doing right now that aren't in your job description, that are there because you don't have a tenant, you don't have a vendor, you don't have resources, you don't have money, you don't have an office? Go ahead and let me know what that looks like for you. You're deficient. What's happening for you? Are you taking on tasks that are more accounts payable and HR related? What are you taking on? I know there's a little bit of a delay. The other question might be, what are you letting go? Get in that chat room and take a moment, just get honest with yourself. What did I sweep in and take on? We're going to move on because after we spend some time in acceptance, what we now have to do is create an environment of observation. Really important to take a moment and observe what is going on. You've got to take that moment. Alexis Carrel says, a few observation and much reasoning lead to error. Many observations and little reasoning to truth. And what we want to get to through a time of deficiency is a lesson that leads to truth. So we cannot eliminate the time we must spend in observation. Early 2000s, my family and I went to Mexico for a missions trip. We had no idea what we were in for, so I thought it would be an awesome idea to tag on to the end of that missions trip, a trip to San Diego. We'll spend 5 days at the orphanage. We'll spend 3 days in San Diego. It'll be fun. We had no idea how exhausted we were going to be. Absolutely exhausted when we got done at the orphanage. When we got to San Diego, we spent the majority of the time in our hotel room. And the most excited, collectively, we all was on the day that we were leaving. We couldn't wait to get to the airport. We just wanted to go home. We arrived at the airport about 4 hours before our flight, which means they didn't want to do anything with us for an hour and a half. So we're sitting there at the terminal, waiting for someone to take our bags. And all of a sudden, we see this. All the flights are being delayed. So because I've been sitting there for a while and we're the first ones to see this, I go up to the ticket counter and I said, hey, what's going on? And the gal behind the counter said, all of our computers at Frontier have gone down and all of our flights are now delayed. And we cannot do anything until the computers come back up. Well, that was disappointing news. At that point, it was just us and maybe one other family. Quickly, though, it started to look like this. Just a mob generating in front of the ticket counter. People were getting agitated. They were getting irritated. They were making accusations. They were raising their voice. They were crowding in on each other because there was no semblance of line. People coming from the door, coming in, would walk all the way to the front where the ticketing agent was to get the same story all of us had heard, but now they were at the front of the line because they just walked up. It was maddening if you were observing what was going on. No one behind the ticket counter was observing anything. So I went back up to the ticket counter and I said, hey, we're experiencing a little crowding and agitation out here. Would it be possible for you to bring out some stanchions so that we could start a visible line and maybe some signage down that line telling people why that line exists, or some announcements overhead so that people coming in at the very back don't feel like they have to walk all the way to the front to find out what's going on? And she said, oh, that's a good idea. So in relatively short order, they got the line together, they set out some signs, and our line looked more like this. Okay, we can deal with that. We're all in that line very long. We are in that line for a very long time. The line is very long because there are hundreds of people in that line. No Frontier flights are going out. And then we hear that wonderful message. We hear that message that says, ladies and gentlemen, Frontier Airlines is back online. We will begin ticketing you right away. And a gentleman all the way at the back of the line with his 7-8-year-old son gets out of line, walks all the way down in front of 300 people, goes right up to the ticket agent and says, "I'm ready to get my ticket. We're going to miss our flight." To which she replies, "Certainly, sir. Let me help you." Oh my God, I thought there was going to be mutiny right there. The voices started to rise and fists started to go up in the air. And this ticket agent was oblivious, absolutely oblivious. Here is what was happening in the line. She had no idea what was going on. I walked up to her after she ticketed the person who was cutting in line. And I said, "Hey, you might not want to do that again." She said, "Do what?" I said, "That guy just walked up from the back of the line where he's been standing for the last hour and a half and cut in front of everyone, and you let him." And she said, "Oh, I didn't notice that." So what's the moral of the story? We can go a great distance if we just take a moment to observe what's going on. If a manager had been there, what would the manager have been observing about their staff? There was no sense of initiative. There was no sense of problem solving. There was no sense of conflict resolution. There was no sense of being able to hold a boundary. This team needed some education. They needed some training. And guess what? They needed it yesterday before the deficiency. The deficiency didn't create all of those inefficiencies. The deficiency just exposed it. That's why it's so important to take the time to observe what's going on. You got to observe what's going on. Because here's the deal. What if inefficiencies are present? What needs to change to make tomorrow better? What do you want tomorrow to look like? You want it to look like the same as it did today, the same as it did yesterday? Or is this the perfect time to say, hey, do we need to realign some goals? Do we need to redefine some job descriptions? Do deliverables need to be re-examined? Do we need to look at our training program? Are people not behaving the way we want them to behave? So important, because I am telling you, whatever you witness here in inefficiencies existed yesterday. Whatever you're witnessing in inefficiencies right now during this pandemic existed on March 1st. You're just seeing them now. Observation. Then we go to action. That's when we go to action. I'm not telling you don't do anything. I'm just telling you, when you decide to do something, do it after you've observed. Of course, I fixed the gravy situation when my recipe had come up deficient. Of course I had. It didn't taste like mine, but I solved it. This is your chance right here. This moment right here is your opportunity to make inefficient things efficient. Take advantage of the situation. Because if not now, when? I know what I'm going to hear, especially from the property management industry. You know, we can't do that, Jody. My owner expects things done a certain way. My employers expect things done a certain way. My residents and tenants want it done a certain way. We won't have the money. We won't get approval. It won't work, Jody. You don't understand. It won't work. Well, I'm going to tell you, those who say it can't be done are usually being interrupted by others doing it. It absolutely can be done, and it should be done right here in the process. It's when people will be the most open to it, believe it or not. Think about it. If you went to an owner right now and said, look, I know you want 10 reports every 3 days. We don't have the resources to do 10 reports every 3 days, but I could do 3 reports every 10 days. They'll see it differently right now. Take advantage of the opportunity. When I saw this quote, it meant so much to me. What I thought at the moment was the worst thing that could happen was absolutely the biggest gift I've ever received. I need you to ask yourself, what's the worst thing that could happen if I take those inefficiencies and actually do something with them? What's the worst thing that's going to happen? Because you weren't comfortable with everything the way it was before this deficiency took place. You wanted to make a change before COVID-19 happened. You were unhappy before the stay-at-home order. So now is as good a time as any. And I get it. Risk. It's all about risk, right? Gosh, how do we feel about risk? It's at this point that we need to go back and say, now, wait a minute. We need to look at that risk benefit one more time. We need to go back and reevaluate it, because in times of great deficiency, risk and benefit shift. And that shift may give you just what you need to start something new, to start something beneficial, to do things different. Let's just take a look at a few examples right now. We've all seen too much news, right? We've seen too much news. Who knew that in America we had 2 pipelines for food? I didn't know that. I didn't know that until we had this deficiency. The deficiency of people buying food. We have one food track that delivers to restaurants and schools, and we have one food track that delivers to people, like at your King Soopers or Walmart. Who knew? I didn't know. What the deficiency of buyers over on the restaurant and school side has allowed to rise to the top is that those 2 pathways have no ability to intersect whatsoever. There's a great inefficiency there. There is a huge opportunity there. Because there is no way for those paths to cross, farmers that are growing food for restaurants and schools are letting all of their product sit out and mold to be tilled back into the ground. Even though on the other side, we have people lined up at food banks, we have people not able to feed their families. Look, I'm not the best baker in the world, but I'd have taken a couple of those zucchinis and figured out how to make some gluten-free zucchini bread. We're just going to let it rot? I have a friend in Florida, and we were talking a couple of weeks ago, and she goes, oh, Jody, she said, I live right by these strawberry fields, and the air is filled with the smell of strawberries, and they're all going to be allowed to go rotten and be tilled back into the ground. And I go, why? She said, well, it's been on the news down here. It's too risky to let people onto the farm with baskets or buckets to pick a few strawberries. It's too risky. Somebody didn't take time to observe. Somebody didn't go back in and weigh the risk, because 6 months ago it may have been too risky. But I don't think it's too risky now. I think if you were ever going to get away with it, it would be now. What a missed opportunity. How about where our vaccines are concerned? When this whole thing started, what did we hear? Oh, we won't have a vaccine for 5 years. It takes 5 years to do a vaccine. We've got this protocol and this protocol and that protocol, and then we've got to do this, that, and the other thing, and it'll be 5 years. Guess what? They're weighing the risk versus benefit again and saying, okay, hold on. Maybe now is the time that we look at our process and say, what can we safely cut out? Where is the risk now? Because it looks a whole lot different than it did 8 months ago. Let me bring it a little closer to home. Pre-COVID-19, well, this would be grounds for child abuse. There would be a huge risk in doing something like this. During COVID-19, this is just playing a game called preparing for an important conference call. Of course, this is in jest, kind of, sort of. The risk looks different, doesn't it? Do you know how many parents I have heard say, oh, before COVID, I absolutely didn't allow my child to watch TV. The risk of them just not getting what they need mentally I don't want to be that kind of parent. Well, guess what? That risk shifted. Don't be afraid to go back and look at the risk benefit again. You may be interested to see what you find. So I'm going to have us take another poll. It'll be the last poll that we take. And I want to know how you feel about risk. What's your comfort level? Are you a none? I don't want any risk at all. Are you, I feel okay with it as long as we've got a lot of data and a lot of support from management? Or are you, I love risk, it's my friend. Sometimes we're even different about risk. For me, I sit with okay as long as I have a lot of data and support from a business perspective. But if I'm sitting behind the seat of my challenger, well, then risk is my friend. Sometimes we have it be just a little different. I'll give us just another few seconds to finish up the poll. We have nobody who is completely averse to risk. We have a 60-40 split with 60% of you saying, I'm okay with it as long as I've got some good support and data. And 40% that say, hey, I love risk. It's my friend. If you're okay, as long as I have a lot of data and a lot of support, this is where you might get stuck. This is where you might have to go out of your comfort zone just a little, and start experimenting and investigating risk benefit. Understand there is also a reason we don't like to take action in a deficiency. And that reason is whatever we do is not going to look as perfect as what we had in our mind to begin with. It's not going to look as perfect. Trust me, when I packed up my kids that morning that I discovered my recipe was deficient, and we went to King Soopers and I got what I needed, the best I was able to do was come up with the best homemade jar gravy I could hope for. That's what it was. It was good old homemade jar gravy. That was the solution. I had to do something different. I wasn't going to be able to do what I originally had in mind. I had to do something different, and it wasn't going to look as perfect as what I originally had in my head. Right out of Psychology Today, quick solutions are seldom perfect. The problem is not in having high standards or in working hard. Perfectionism becomes a problem when it causes emotional wear and tear, or when it keeps you from succeeding or from being happy. The emotional consequences of perfectionism include fear of making mistakes, stress from the pressure to perform, and self-consciousness from feeling both self-confidence and self-doubt. It can also include tension, frustration, disappointment, sadness, anger, or fear of humiliation. These are common experiences for inwardly focused perfectionists. The emotional stress caused by the pursuit of perfection and the failure to achieve this goal can evolve into more severe psychological difficulties. Perfectionists are more vulnerable to depression when stressful events occur, particularly those that leave them feeling as though they are not good enough. In many ways, perfectionists' belief sets a person up to be disappointed, given that achieving perfection consistently is impossible. It's impossible. So we have to let go of it. And we have to know that during times of incredible deficiency, when we go to act, it may not look perfect. It may not look perfect. We've got to ask, what's the worst thing that could happen? What's the absolute worst thing that could happen? What, my boss is going to yell at me? My tenants are going to be upset? I'm going to lose a job? Is that the worst thing that could happen? Or is this the worst thing that could happen? What's the worst thing that could happen? Finally, we're going to talk about incorporation. Oftentimes we think, oh my gosh, we just got to come up with a solution just until this deficiency is over. Only until the deficiency is over, and then we can go back to normal. Horrible mistake. Because whatever you're discovering right now, remember, you had before and you're going to have after. So why not make it permanent? Why not look at it and say, you know what, this is how it's going to be from this point forward. I can guarantee you at Frontier Airlines, when the computers came back on, nothing changed. I can guarantee you the deficiency highlighted all of those inefficiencies that existed the day before the computers failed, the day the computers failed, and were there the day after the computers failed. No incorporation. Just a heavy sigh of, oh, thank God that's over. What a missed opportunity. My husband and I have been having many discussions about the car business. The car business was deemed non-essential. However, people being able to buy cars was essential. Weird dynamic that happened here. And dealerships were told, look, you can sell a car, but you can't have any customers on site. You can't have any more than 4 people in the building. You can't have someone come in and fill out paperwork. You can't be with someone on a test drive. Figure it out. Many car dealerships, as we have all seen, have adopted a real concierge mentality. Oh, you want to test drive the purple Challenger? Well, we'll come and deliver that right to your home. Leave the keys on the front porch. Let us know how you like it. In 2 days, you get a phone call. Oh, you don't like the purple one? You want to drive the yellow one instead? Not a problem. We'll send one over to get the purple one. We'll bring the yellow one in front of your house. Let us know how you like that one. Oh, you'd like to buy the yellow one? No problem. We'll deliver all the paperwork right to your home. Sign it. Let us know when it's done. We'll come pick it up. And when you're ready to take delivery of your vehicle, we'll put it right in front of your house. And our sales staff will do a FaceTime walk around with your vehicle. Wow. Pretty darn amazing. Pretty amazing solution that they came up with to what can otherwise be a relatively inefficient process. I've heard car dealerships make this comment. And I can't wait till this is all over and we can go back to the way it used to be. Why? First of all, why do you think I'm going to settle for that as a consumer? You've now just spoiled me. You've now just given me something I didn't even know I could get. And then you're going to take it away from me? Nope, I don't like that idea. I want you to do exactly what you're doing now forever. So what does it look like in your office? What does it look like in your cubicles as they sit empty? What are the things that you're going to put in place that are going to make your tenants happier moving forward? Because you took the time. You took the time to deal with your anger. You took the time to pause. You took the time to observe. You put in place some great action. And now you get to have a brand new future. What's that going to look like for you? So let me sum this all up for you. We want you to be effective. Everybody wants you to be effective. Don't be a superhero too early. Allow deficiencies to expose all of your inefficiencies. Take a moment, pause, because being open to what can be cut, changed, or updated allows for the delivery of the best product. You want to be efficient, right? Allowing the introduction of new ideas, processes, and protocols that become apparent during deficiency, well, that's what solid efficiency protocols are made of. They're solid when they come out of that environment. They're forged. And of course, you want your asset to perform, right? That's what it's all about. When your building operations are being challenged to evolve, stretched to be better, well, now you've got a well-oiled machine. I want to thank you for joining me for this very first Hungry for Knowledge webinar. In the future, you will see our industry partners presenting topics that people in real estate and real estate management can benefit from. You're going to be able to leverage their expertise so that you can be more efficient, more effective, and more profitable. I really appreciate you taking the time to share with me today, and I will welcome all of your comments. Shoot me an email. Let me know how we can use this platform better, because this is the platform that the Division of Real Estate has required in order for us to be able to attach CE credits to future webinars that will be presented by our industry partners. Have an absolutely fantastic day.